everyone. Whether you're on the East Coast, West Coast, or around the world, this is Coast to Coast. We got everybody here. How's it going, gentlemen?
I am living the dream. Since I'm going to be the only one that talks, everybody doesn't know what gentleman means. I figured I might as well just jump right on in here and say, hey, I made it back from LA.
I haven't heard the word gentleman since third grade, but yeah.
I mean, I was talking, and then he had to just chime right on in. It's
Jay. It's why we had.
It's one of those days today, is it not? Hey, listen. You know what? I just got back from LA, so obviously I'm used to having people that are that way. I was sick as hell in LA. I got sick as a dog.
Okay.
I have no idea. I was throwing up everything. I don't know what didn't agree with me, but I wasn't drinking like that. I just got sick.
So you must have got a hold of some kind of food wrong. We're eating the Mexican food. Sometimes they don't cook it long enough. You can get sick off of it.
I don't know if you noticed this, but I mean, that's what most of the food is in LA.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have been to LA, but it's mostly Mexican food.
Yeah.
I've only been to LA once, and I think I was a kid at the time. I really don't have a lot of memories of it, honestly.
Weirdly, I spent a lot of time
unless you go to the pier. Then if you go to Santa Monica Pier, you can get a little bit more food than Mexican. But yeah, a lot of.
I don't know. That's where I was. I was a block away from the Santa Monica Pier.
Were you actually on the pier?
I did go onto the pier. I did.
On
the pier.
There is a nice seafood and a nice burger joint on the pier.
So the burger joint is there. The seafood joint closed.
Damn, I liked it there.
Yeah, it says thank you for coming for the last 31 years. Unfortunately, we're no longer open. So it just closed up and stuff like that. I've been hearing that Santa Monica itself has been having some challenges in general. So, but I mean, it is what it is. Yeah, but I got to start off since we do have somebody who lives in Houston. What is the climate today?
Oh, it's a nice breezy high 60s, low 70s, slight breeze.
Not that climate.
And sunny. My bad. No, you meant about the U of A game. Yeah, man, it was depressing. I was depressed. I was heartbroken. I think my sister, all my family's gone to U of A. So they were all heartbroken, man. I mean, that last play, the lack of execution on the last play.
The fact they
didn't get a shot. That was hard to take. But
that's the thing. Like,
honestly, I don't think they're going to Florida. That was a hell of a game.
Yeah, the fact they didn't get a shot up was crazy.
Yeah, losing like that, like the guy jumps up, he knows he's going to travel, so he literally lets go of the ball. He knows he can't touch it again, so he's like, can somebody just grab the ball quick?
Yeah.
Well, the truth of the matter is that he probably should have grabbed it to stop the clock.
Yeah, and then they would have at least been able to foul right away and then hope for something after that.
Right, that's what should have happened. I think that in hindsight, because it was 3 seconds that wound up going off the clock for that moment in time.
Yeah.
It was the only real play that I watched of the game. I did not really watch much. But I mean, I'm like, that's how this game's ending. That's how it's going to end.
It was funny too, because it really looked like the Gators were probably going to lose because of the sheer amount of turnovers they did throughout the game. Like this was a game of runs, and the only time, hold on just a second. The only time they led was 8-6 at the very beginning of the game, and then they trailed by as much as 12 or 14.
14 points.
Yeah, and then they find their way back. It becomes a real tight game at the end. It was definitely just a game of runs because Houston would jump out to a lead, Gators would bring it back in, and then they didn't end up taking the lead back over until there was like a minute left in the game. So I mean, it was interesting, especially halfway through when the Gators had 12 turnovers to the 4 that Houston had. Like it just looked like they were playing sloppy enough basketball to lose that game.
It literally looked like the Duke-Houston game all over again, except Duke was doing to Houston what Houston was doing to Florida. And then as Duke had that 14-point lead on Houston, Houston battled their way back, and then all of a sudden, at the end of the game, Duke couldn't execute. Houston builds the double-digit lead against Florida, lets Florida back into the game, and then Houston can't execute late. It was literally pretty much an exact carbon copy of how the Duke-Houston game ended, just on the opposite side with Houston.
It was very much so.
And Joe,
I will say this:
absolutely deserve to lose that way because they controlled that game. So if you're just going to let the game slip away, that is solidly on you.
Yeah. I really thought, though, and not to, I really thought Houston did a good job on Wilson Clay Jr. He didn't have a point, I don't think, until a few minutes left in the first half, and I think he fed up with a handful of points, I think, towards the end. But they really, really controlled Wilson Clay Jr. And again, what cost Houston was really just that last couple of minutes, just lack of execution on their part. Those last few minutes just took them out. And when you're in a dogfight like that, you can't lose execution because you don't know how many opportunities you're going to have because it's just tight defense. And they were tight.
Yeah. Well,
34 seconds left.
But I want to say this.
Yes. Yeah, stepping out of bounds was wild. And the other part where you thought the Gators were going to come up short was they weren't hitting their free throws.
Yep.
And at the end of the game, you can't miss those. So, I mean, they overcame quite a few things where they were shooting themselves.
I'll tell you this, though, bro. Oh, yeah. I will say this. This is the last thing I want to say about Houston because there is always optimism for the city of Houston. And what I do like about next coming's team is, what's his name is going to be back? Tugler's going to be back. Sharp's going to be back, which is a huge part of their defense and that three-point line shooting. But then they get the number 20 guy in ESPN 100 and Kingston Flamings. They also get Isaiah Harrell, the number 13 guy in the ESPN 100. And then they get Chris Sinek Jr., the number 6 guy in ESPN's 100. So they're going to get a lot of talent come in next year. So I fully expect, to make another run at it. How far we go, I can never predict that. But I do think, they got them. ESPN has them ranked number 1 right now, going into the 25-26 season. Yeah, look it up. It's on there. Trust me, I'm looking at it right now.
No, I thought you were saying they had them ranked as like the number 1 recruiting class. I'm like, no, they're not number 1 recruiting.
No, I didn't say that. See, it's like salmon and salmon. Sometimes you got to take out the L and listen to what I'm saying. I said they got the number 1 ranked team going into 25-26 season. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it's a silent L. It gets you every time.
And the thing with Houston, though, is
man. I'm just playing.
Unless it's Houston, then it's a very loud L.
the thing with Houston, though, and like Houston, this is gonna be one of the best recruiting classes that Kelvin Sampson has brought into Houston since he's been there. But Houston is always one of those teams that historically likes to play with more experience over youth. So I do expect Kelvin Sampson to hit the transfer portal pretty hard to try to replace some of their experienced players with more experienced players.
Sure.
And that might mean you don't see these high incoming freshmen playing as much as they would play.
More specifically is Uzan. Yeah, because Uzan, I think most likely is going to go pro. So he's going to have to look for a point guard, like you said, in the transfer portal. So absolutely.
And like when Duke brings in all these freshmen, like they were showing Duke's projected starting lineup next year. They have 4 starting freshmen next year is what they're predicting. And then they have Tyrese Proctor as the point guard coming back. Otherwise, Duke's going to be going with all freshmen next year. Like teams like that, they bring in all these high-quality freshmen. They play them right away. They deal with the learning pains, and it is what it is. Teams like Houston, they have the talent in this year's recruiting class to play freshmen if they want to. But that's just not something Kelvin Sampson has ever really done, even going back to Oklahoma. Like, he brings in a good recruiting class, but usually those freshmen aren't playing a ton of minutes until their sophomore season.
Which means that he could be losing them.
Oh, go ahead. What?
Which means that he could be losing them by the end of their freshman year, and they all jump into the transfer portal. That's going to be part of the problem with some of this stuff.
That's why I think they're going to hit the portal pretty hard too, because they're going to want to at least get some experienced players to replace the experience they're losing, and then
most definitely
these freshmen end up leaving right away.
Well, and that's why I kind of say that we're going to be forever now seeing 1 seeds in the Final Four, because that's how it's going to work from here on out.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as these things have become professional sports, it's going to move a lot more like professional sports.
Well, it's not going to be March Madness anymore. It's just going to be the March tournament.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, your Cinderella stories will be very, very seldom.
Will be more on people themselves.
I actually like the Cinderella story. I like a good Cinderella. So that kind of sucks, but it's the way of the future, I guess.
Well, I mean, but that's just the way that college sports is going. right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it is.
it's not the tradition of college sports. Like it is pro sports now.
As soon as you brought the NIL into the mix, and then you brought that transfer portal into the mix, you pretty much knew that, especially for basketball, because there is no NCAA tournament for football, but especially for basketball, once the transfer portal came into the mix and once the NIL came into the mix, you knew it was going to become a matter of teams are going to try to buy a championship by trying to sign the highest recruits that have the highest NIL deals, or they're just going to hit the transfer portal and be like, you just played 4 years at Purdue. Here, we'll bring you into Duke for 1 year as a graduate student, and all you have to do is play basketball and show up to the one class a day that you need to show up to, and you have all the experience we're looking for.
So I like the NIL because I do think these athletes should get paid for their name, image, and likeness. I do. It's a way of life. I don't like the transfer portal. Yeah, but I don't like the transfer portal. I wish we didn't have that.
So I'm fine with the transfer portal. What I don't like is the fact that you have so many shots at the transfer portal.
That's the thing. I think you should be able to do it
during the playoffs. You have it after the spring game. You have it again before the normal season. So it's why teams are pulling out of the spring game, because why even have it? Half those guys probably aren't even going to be on your roster.
Right. The other thing, too, is I think if you're going into the transfer portal, you should be allowed to do it just once. And then once you transfer that once, you should not be allowed to hit the portal again unless something happens within the university, like if the coach gets fired or the university gets in trouble and you're like how teams get kind of like suspended for postseason play or they have like a 2-year ban or whatever. Like if you transfer from one program to a new program and all of a sudden you're going into a program that's getting investigated by the NCAA for something, then I think you should be allowed to leave again because you had no idea that was going to happen to the program that you transferred to. But otherwise, I think you should only be allowed to transfer once, and then once you make that transfer, then you're done.
I mean, I'm even fine with you being able to do it multiple years. Like, I don't care about that. I just don't think you should be able to do it multiple times during the year.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's where it's a little bit out of hand.
I also believe that they should no longer get scholarships then. The moment you have an NIL deal, you no longer get a scholarship. You have to pay for college.
Yeah.
No,
I'm
fine with
100%
that. Or at least there should be a benchmark where you make a certain amount, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because some of these kids aren't getting NIL deals. Like they're just not, right? So I'm fine with them getting scholarships.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Either that or you got to have like a base pay where everybody gets something. But
I think you had it right. I think if you don't get an NIL deal,
and you get
should be a scholarship. But if you get NIL, then it should be paying for it because now. Yeah,
and again, there should be a threshold, right? Like it should be whatever the scholarship is worth.
Yeah,
like
you're not. Yeah, if you get like a $5,000 NIL deal, then you can get a scholarship. But if you are
like Arch Manning getting $2.9 million a year in NIL,
like,
you don't need a scholarship. You can pay for your college. You're good.
Yeah. And I think that would just be like a common sense parameter that they would have to have obviously built into a contract. But
except we're talking about the NCAA and there's no common sense ever.
Yeah, well, that's true. Hey, I mean, damn, you're right. Common sense ain't always common. That's what my daddy said.
Yeah,
the truth of the matter is that it should be put into the contract. So really, these guys aren't paying for they aren't paying for it, but that really should be put into the contract. Like, listen, as part of the NIL deal, we are going to pay for your tuition, and that's going to equal this amount. And you also are getting paid this amount as well. So that's what I am getting at. Like, that's where I believe that this should actually come into play. I also think that they're going to wind up having to put in some type of so that you don't get to buy a championship, they're going to have to do some type of like salary cap of sorts.
So they are talking about that. So it'll be interesting to see how that evolves on what it becomes. But I mean, you knew they were going to have to do something, right? Because otherwise, you just straight up are buying championships forever at that point. Because it's just going to be whatever school can afford the most.
So plus, and then what are you going to be able to do that as? Is it going to be a salary cap per school in total? Because listen, let's face it. Like you could give a $10 million salary cap to a school, and is that $10 million for football and $10 million for basketball? No, it should be $10 million across the board.
Well, that'd be interesting.
That's where where if I'm Duke, I'm going to spend my money on basketball and forego the football. And if I'm Alabama, I might want to spend it on the football and forego the basketball. Or maybe I want to do the both. $5 million.
That would favor a school like Gonzaga, where basketball is all they do.
You know? Right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
But see, then again, because that like, and I'm using $10 million as the number, which would probably be much too low. But realistically, then you're talking about like the women's sports. You got Connecticut who maybe they want to spend it on basketball, but not just the men's side. They want to spend it on the women's side, you know. And it's like like now you're talking about all sports. I think that's what should happen here. I feel like that these colleges should get placed, you know, a certain number, that this is the number you have in total. End of story. All throughout all sports, which means that if you are a baseball team like Tennessee, you know, maybe you want to spend some money on your baseball team rather than your football team or your basketball team. But the women's basketball team's got a pretty good team most of the time. You know what I mean? And you got a pretty good softball team that plays.
You know how
it's so like, you know, these are part of the things that I think that should start to happen. You know, that's what the NCAA should do. They should say, okay, we are going to give every school $25 million cap.
Yep.
Whether they use it or not.
That capologist trying to manage not just one sport, but trying to do it across all the sports of a school.
That would be insane.
Man.
I feel headaches all over the place with
right?
that.
Like,
you know what though? But that's where that means that school's got to pay somebody to do that.
No,
you better be paying me for that.
Multiple guys to do that.
Probably it'd be a team.
That's a team of like 4 or 5 people. And you know what? And it's going to cost that school not only the $25 million, probably another $5 million on top of that to pay the people to make sure that they only stay within the $25 million, and how they play the capology on that. Like that's what I kind of feel should happen. And if you hit that $25 million, you pay the NCAA or a governing body $1 million on top of that. That if you hit the 25 million threshold, it costs you $1 million. You know, or like have a sliding scale on that. Like 10 million, it costs you $1 million. 20 million, it costs you $2 million. 33 million, and that's it. 30 million is the cap for amongst all sports. $30 million amongst all sports should be enough money.
Sure. And like what you said too, like teams like Duke. Yes, they have a baseball team. Yes, they have a lacrosse team, which is always one of the best lacrosse teams in the nation every single year, and they have a football team. But if each school gets $25 million or whatever for like what you were saying, you know damn well Duke's going to spend $20 million on basketball. And then
they're going to have the bigger cap number.
They'll divvy out the other $5 million on the rest of the sports because basketball is where the money comes in for that school. That's
right.
Where
and ultimately, and that makes sense. That makes sense to them. You know what I mean? Because everybody else now there you're taking away anybody, because anybody who gets any money over there no longer gets the, you know, you don't get the scholarship because you're paying for school.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that comes out of that cap money.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So now you're paying for that, and those scholarships could go to the other teams. Yeah. That's where that comes into play. But ultimately, even at Duke, you're going to wind up only spending $15 million on basketball, even though basketball is where most of your income comes in, because you are going to try to you're going to put like a few $1 million into the football program, a few $1 million into the baseball program, you know, into the softball program, into the Lady Devils and stuff like that. You're going to need to still put some of that money. That's where, because ultimately, you know, like if you were only putting that money into one spot, somebody in that university is going to be like, excuse me, you know, and I think that
the talent you had in other sports would leave.
Yeah.
Because they're going to go somewhere where they can get an NIL deal.
Yep.
Right.
So, yeah, no, it'll be it's going to be very interesting to see how this comes together. And, you know, it's because the NCAA is so reactionary. They never seem to think things through before they bring them in. So they just like, let the genie out of the bottle, and they're like, how come this is a disaster? It's like, well, because
the NBA draft, since we're talking about this too, the NBA draft could be kind of shaken up a little bit because Cooper Flagg has said he's not hiring an agent. Which means if he doesn't like the team that's picking number 1, he very easily could go back to Duke and make more money.
Okay.
Because his rookie deal in the NBA, he'd be making $4.7 million his rookie year, because rookies get like that 4-year, $27 or $28 million contract right out the gate. So you get like $4 million your first year, and then it goes up. He'll be making $10 million in NIL money next year. So he'll be making basically double.
Would still be making that money. I mean, that's the thing with the NIL is it's an endorsement. Is all it is. So whether you go to the NBA or not, you're probably taking that stuff with you.
Yeah, you're gonna keep them endorsements. If anything, you're going to get more endorsements.
That's my point.
He could be the
leaving school doesn't mean those NIL deals go away. It just means they get rewritten how they are.
He could be the first projected number 1 pick to enter the draft without an agent. Is kind of what everyone's talking about. Because usually, if you're the projected number 1 pick, you have your agent already picked out. You have like everything lined up because you know you're going number 1. That just kind of shows you, because he's actually technically supposed to be in high school right now, Cooper Flagg. Like, he classified early to go to Duke early, so he was technically supposed to be a senior in high school this year. So, like, he's kind of just playing it out. Like, if I don't like the situation that the draft is laid out, like, if I don't like the Wizards picking number 1, or if the Hornets get the number 1 pick and I don't like the situation, it doesn't hurt if I go back to school one more year, because if I go back to school one more year, I'm probably going to be the number 1 pick the year after that anyways.
I mean, it's definitely possible. And when, agreed, like it changed college sports. It definitely did that. But
I don't think it ruined it, because athletes had to get paid somehow.
Yes.
They had to.
Yeah. No, I mean, and that's the thing is, if you're talking about from a tradition standpoint, I agree. If you're talking about the direction it was going to go anyway, like they didn't do it well. but I mean, it was definitely the way it was going to go.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. I just think it's funny that you say it like that, because I guess Cooper Flagg only wants to go to Philadelphia.
Hey, it's close to home, relatively.
I think with West Coast Rent, I think it's a transfer portal, in my opinion, that has really ruined college basketball, because it's so volatile. There's no stability. You can't build a team because, like you said, if they don't like the situation, they got 4 or 5 different opportunities to leave said situation. So you really never know how do you build chemistry when you can just bow out 3 different ways?
Well, I mean,
I just don't like that.
The best example of that was going into last year's football season for my Huskies, right?
Right.
Our coach goes to Alabama.
Yeah.
We lose all but 2 starters to the transfer portal.
See, and that's the thing too. Like,
I think with Jackson State and Colorado when they did it.
Well, that's the thing though too. Like when it came, what Bo was saying with Kalen DeBoer leaving, a lot of the people that left Washington to follow him to Alabama, the sole reason why they went to Washington was because of Kalen DeBoer. Like, sure. So if he's leaving, why would you want to stay at a program when the initial reason why you signed with that program was to be with the head coach that signed you? So yeah, obviously
I'm not saying it was wrong. Like it 100% makes all the sense in the world. Why would you stay at a program that you don't know who the coach is? I mean, that transfer portal makes all the sense in the world. Yep. I'm just saying that it's hard to build.
It is hard to build
because that completely derails all of your recruiting. And then fact they can do it multiple times during the year. Man, that's rough.
I just feel like these players, it gives the players so many opportunities to hold these programs hostage because, hey, look, coach, if I don't like what you're doing, I got 3 ways to get out of here. Sure. So you better shape up, coach, because I'll be the first one smoking at 3 different opportunities. Well, I think they're just holding them hostage.
That's actually where I find it annoying is a lot of these guys are transferring because they're like, oh, well, I'm not getting the touches or whatever that I want. It's like, well, rather than beat out the guy in front of you, they're just like, yeah, I'm out of here.
There's some cases too. Like I knew that Caleb Love from Arizona this year, who was initially at North Carolina before he transferred to Arizona. His actual school of choice coming out of high school was the University of Arizona. But because Arizona did not have any more scholarships to give him, He wound up going to North Carolina, which was his number 2 choice. As soon as a scholarship spot opened up at Arizona, that's when Caleb Love entered the transfer portal. That's when he went to Arizona because he's like, this was my school of choice to begin with, but because they had no scholarships to give out, I chose somewhere else. It's not that I'm just leaving North Carolina because I want to leave. This is where my school of choice was. I want to go here.
Yeah,
like some athletes do that.
All leaving is bad.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how we got there.
No, I'm just saying like that. I think basketball is a lot for the transfer portal in basketball. I think a lot of it has to do with there's a lot fewer scholarships to be given out. And if there is there's certain players that they may have like a specific school they want to go to, but if that school has no scholarships left, well, then obviously you don't have a choice. If you want that scholarship, you have to go somewhere else. But then if you see the school that you initially wanted to go to all of a sudden open up, well, then, yeah, you're going to enter the portal to go to the school that you initially wanted to go to.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if your school is out of scholarships, then you should try sports betting by using the QR code right here. You can jump in on this, and if you win big, you can pay for school. It seems like a really good way to have to use a hotline because you didn't do very well. Up to 125% of your first 3 deposits, 10% bet guarantee. Also, if you are here in the Pacific Northwest, True Fusion Gym, use the QR code on the screen, free 5-day pass, any of the 3 locations, Bellevue, Ballard, University Village, Pilates Boot Camp, Yoga Bar, and more. Find your edge. True Fusion Gym.
I feel like we should be giving the Gamblers Anonymous tip line after that. I don't know.
I mean,
how many lives are we ruining?
I mean, to be fair, though, the people that loyally watch this show, they're no quitters. They're not trying to do that.
Well, sir, what led you? Well, I got this 10% off code, and then my life changed forever.
So, speaking of Houston, they got to lose twice in the same day.
Yeah, they did. Unfortunately. when the misery hits, it just comes.
Astros fall to the Mariners because you guys didn't hit that magical number that the Mariners can't overcome.
Actually, we had to hit 5
runs.
Yeah,
4 runs. So since you only put up 3, the Mariners get the dub. But probably bigger news for the Mariners is Robles hurts himself and is done for the foreseeable future with a shoulder injury. It was a pretty great catch into the net, but with him being hurt, it makes me wonder if the Mariners are going to take this opportunity to shake up the roster in general, maybe try and become a little bit more competitive. So we'll see. We'll see, right? Because, I mean, it looked like it's early on they're going to stick with the lineup, but now that you have a major contributor getting hurt, maybe they shake up the lineup altogether.
The Mariners have been kind of going this route for a little while now. What do you think, Bo, as a fan? What would you like to see? What would you like to see? What?
For 23 years, to be exact.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. I'm just saying, what do you think? What would you like? I know what the Cowboys ownership straight up. What would you like to see the Mariners do? Do you think that could get you guys back on track or back where you want to be?
Hit the ball.
Oh, I understand that. But what change would you have to make to organize yourself?
So the direction I think you're asking this.
Yes, thank you.
What they would need to do is they would need to actually be aggressive in the off season. Mm-hmm. Like we already had one of the best pitching staffs in baseball, right? And we had 0 bats. So what did we do this off season? Nothing. We did absolutely 0 things. So, I mean, obviously there were bats available. We have the money to do it. They just don't do it. So,
but do you think that's a GM issue or is that an ownership issue?
That's an ownership 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that is an ownership problem.
The last time the Mariners were aggressive in free agency, they made the playoffs, and that was 2021, wasn't it? Or was it 2022?
22.
That was the last time the Mariners were aggressive in free agency. They actually spent like $95 million in free agency that offseason, and look what happened. They won 94 games and made the playoffs. Amazing what happens when you're aggressive.
And the last time they were in the playoffs prior to that
was
116-win season in 2001.
Yep.
So not exactly a history of being aggressive. And it's not like you have to go spend money in a dumb way.
No.
But you do have to at least bring talent in. That's where the Mariners are so frustrating, is they don't even do that. Like, they don't even try and bring like prospects up. Like, they're just like, yeah, you know how we didn't get the playoffs last year? We're going to do that again.
You know how we hover around 500 and miss the playoffs by 3 games? We're going to try that again. We're going to just keep doing that. 81, that's our goal for the season.
So
81 and
the
81.
thing that's funny is they have missed the playoffs by 1 game multiple times.
Yeah.
Because they do exactly this. They do nothing in the off season. They play well enough to kind of, they're competitive. It's a competitive team. And then the All-Star break comes, they forget how to play baseball for like 2-3 weeks. And then soon as they're about mathematically out of it, they'll start to go on a tear, and then they'll be done with 2 weeks to go, and then they'll win a bunch of games and technically miss by
1
game.
Yeah.
And it is the same story over and over and over. For our VHS friends out there, please stop being kind and rewinding. I don't want to see this movie again. Just break the damn tape. Let's start over.
I like the VHS. I haven't seen some things like that in a long time.
I'm just showing where all this gray stuff came from.
Well, honestly, you might disagree, Bill, but honestly, the best thing that could happen to the Mariners is for them to just go like 70 and 92 and just have a horrendous season where they're not hovering around the playoffs.
It won't matter.
You don't think it would matter?
No, it doesn't matter because the ownership group doesn't actually care about baseball.
Fair point.
So it doesn't. If people are still filling the stadium, they could be a 50-win team. They don't care. So it's a problem with the ownership. Again, credit to the ownership for keeping baseball in Seattle, right? Because there was some ownership groups trying to move it out. So They bought the team as when Nintendo bought it, they bought it as a thank you to the Seattle area, because that's where they brought their company in, to the US, right? So they buy the team, but they don't have any vested interest in actual baseball. So then they sell their majority shares, and they're still a part owner. But the new ownership group is very similar. Like they want to make money with the franchise, which it does. It's a profitable franchise. But they don't actually care about winning rings. They want to be just good enough people continue to go to the stadium. Well, they're accomplishing that. So they don't have anything incentive-wise to do more because people still go to the game.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, there's just nothing really. There's nothing really that's making them want to get better. And that is, as a fan, very frustrating.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
Yeah, across the board. Yeah, because at least on the opposite side, the Phillies are always trying to do something to, keep the ballpark full.
Yeah.
Like ownership right now understands got to spend money to make money, and we want championships, and that's, it's great when you have an owner who wants to win.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
When he says he wants his trophy back, I mean, that shows a little bit of arrogance in ownership,
for sure,
that you kind of want.
Yeah. Well, you want them to spend money. You want them to be aggressive. You want them to build the team that is going to put a successful team out there. And that's where the Mariners, unfortunately, are ran more like a business rather than a sports franchise. Is they're like, hey, we are getting top numbers without spending top dollar.
That's just like the Cubs ownership right now.
Well, no. So let's face this. Let's face this in a different way. Most baseball teams, I'll say, let me change that. Most baseball teams want to operate at a loss. That's the purpose of the baseball team, that the baseball team operates at a loss, that you as an owner gets paid to be the owner salary. And that ultimately, as your salary is supposed to cover your nuts on being the owner of the team, that all being said, you want the whole organization to have a minus at the back end of this, because You want it to be able to write off so you don't have to pay taxes. Right? Isn't that the way it's supposed to work?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on if it's close to breaking even, then you want it to be a loss. But if you can get it to make money, then you just make the money.
Yeah, but there's only what did they say? There's only 6 teams in Major League Baseball that make money.
How many?
Every other team 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what the 6 were by chance?
The Dodgers, the Phillies, the Yankees, the Mets.
Cubs.
I
Cubs
believe the Cubs, and it could very well be
Padres.
Yeah, Padres probably, because they have really good numbers and stuff like that. So, but every other Major League Baseball team operates at a loss, and that's maybe the Rangers. I don't know. I'm not sure it's the Padres. I think the Padres.
Padres made money last year. The Rangers did not make money last year. The year before that, it was opposite. The Padres did not make money in 2023, which is why they tried to cut payroll last year. And then the Rangers made money in 2023. They kind of flip-flop depending on how much success they have.
Because the Astros probably fall into that same category to operate very closely to the even number.
Yep.
And I got to imagine that there are a number of teams that operate really close to the even number. Like the Guardians operate at even. That probably listen, it's not, you're not losing millions upon millions of dollars owning a baseball team because you're a billionaire. You know what I mean? You're not dumb with your money, but you want to operate at a loss, at a slight loss. And your money is coming from your salary for being the owner, that you can pay yourself as the owner. I'm like, hey, I'm the owner. Yeah, I get to go to these games and make some decisions. And, I'm the president / CEO. And, ultimately, when you have conglomerates like the Phillies it's Middleton that owns the team per se, but he's just the operating manager. There are a number of owners of this team, and they all want to get paid the same. You know what I mean? They all want to make their money, and having a negative. That's why the Phillies do operate on a positive, because they are able to do some of the things that they want to do, and they have some of the best attendance numbers in the league. So that's why they get close to 4 million people to come in on an annual basis, because when that number is not at 4 million, all of a sudden it's like, well, we're losing money, and the owners don't like losing money.
Nope. I think they're one of 4 teams in baseball that average 40,000 plus.
Correct. There's only 4.
Yeah.
But
it's not really silly putty, because that would fail immediately. It's like Flex Seal. Like you're putting a lot of like a lot.
Flex Seal and Gorilla Glue.
That's right.
But interestingly enough, you know what I find very interesting, though? I love looking at numbers in baseball. Baseball is like the one sport that I get number funny. You know what I mean? I love looking at numbers and seeing things that are occurring and things that happen. The entire AL West has a negative run differential.
Yeah.
That's not a shock to me.
The best team in the AL West in run differential are the Angels.
Yeah.
Who are doing really well right now, which is a big surprise because they're not used to doing really well. Obviously, they're 6-3, which is pretty good. And they have a -1 run differential.
Yep.
So they're 6-3 and have a negative run differential. The Texas Rangers are 8-3 and they have a -8 run differential.
Oh, damn.
What are they losing those games by?
Well, I mean, the Cubs just beat the Rangers last night 8-0. So I mean, they were at a dead even run differential. But then
Yeah.
Flips that run differential real quick.
Yeah, I was gonna say they had to have had a couple of games where they just got absolutely smoked.
The two of the Rangers' 3 losses, they have a -14 run differential.
And where are the Cubs coming up with all these runs? I mean, I know they played a couple extra games, but
they beat the Padres 7-1. They beat the Rangers last night 8-0, and then they beat the Athletics 18-3. They beat the Athletics 10-2, and they beat Athletics 9-4. So they had 3 games where they decided to play softball.
All right. So I mean that's why they got 84 runs scored.
Yeah.
Like that's so far above everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, going
But
back
84 runs. I mean, but let's face it, they played 13 games to get 84 runs. That's a lot of runs.
they've scored at least 7 runs in 5 of their last 6 games.
What's making them do that?
Kyle Tucker. Sorry, Jay, I have to throw it in there. Kyle Tucker is literally.
I was angry when he left.
Kyle Tucker is literally what is making the offense do this, because they did not have like that power presence in their lineup last year. Like when the Cubs played anybody last year, you never feared that lineup because they didn't have that guy in the lineup that you feared could change the game. You put Kyle Tucker in that lineup, he's a guy that you fear, where when somebody's on base and Kyle Tucker's coming up, it's like, well, he can bring this guy in with one swing, so now we got to watch how he pitched. But the other thing the Cubs are doing is they lead the major leagues in walks. Like, they are making these pitchers work. The Nathan Eovaldi, who was coming off of a complete game shutout his last start, went 4 2/3 innings.
You can't really say that he's getting most of them. You have 84 runs, right?
Well, no,
Yeah.
like he's got
16 RBIs. That's not. I mean,
no, I know that, but like his presence in the lineup, though.
How many
like,
runs does he have scored though?
He's got 20 runs scored already. Like, he's getting on base a crap ton, and people are.
So-
just,
And that was one of the reasons why, when Kyle Tucker
No,
left, even though I know we got some good prospects.
No. There's no chance he's got 20 runs scored.
let me see. He's got over
he has 16 RBIs.
16
16,
RBIs.
and how many runs scored does he
I'm
have?
Pulling that up right
14.
now. He had 14.
14 runs. So he's been on base and scored 14 times.
Yeah.
And 16 RBIs.
Yeah.
How many
He is
home runs has he got?
5.
So 5 of those are. So I mean, realistically, because that let's take that in real terms. He's got 14 runs and
16
11 RBIs
16
that
RBIs.
don't include him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot of points there. It's
He's
25,
accounting for- he's
25
accounting for-
runs out of 84.
he's
That
accounting
last
for
time I
30
checked, that's about a third.
Yeah, he's
About a
accounting
third.
for-
That's
yeah,
a little
he's-
less, but
He is the main reason why their offense is playing the way that it is, because they have the most walks in Major League Baseball right now. Like, the pitchers are barely going 5 innings against the Cubs because the Cubs are working counts. They're getting on base with walks, and pitchers are at like 85 to 90 pitches after 5 innings. Like, they're getting these pitchers out of the games early to tee off on the bullpen, and they're using their speed. Like last night against the Rangers, the Cubs had 7 stolen bases and 7 attempts last night. So like, they're keeping pressure on on the opposition a much different way than a lot of teams do. They're using small ball. They're using their speed to put themselves in scoring position. And now all of a sudden you get a base hit. 2 runs are scoring as opposed to 1 run. So they're getting the clutch hits they didn't get last year. But like Peg said, Kyle Tucker's accounted for 32% of their runs pretty much, whether it's him scoring runs or him driving in people. When a guy,
you just see that now. You're just noticing that now because with the Cubs, and I guess he's in a big thing. I've known this since Houston since day one. That's why I didn't want when they said they were trading Kyle Tucker. I'm like, that's the last guy I want to see Houston get rid of because he is a huge part of an offense.
So what did you get in return for him?
They
We got Diaz, we got Cam Smith, we got that Wisniewski pitcher, and then we got Mercedes, I think.
Yeah. Isak Paredes, Cam Smith, and Hayden Wisniewski.
Yeah, and I think I would agree that Cam Smith was a good bring-in, but he's young. He's got a lot of growing.
He's not ready yet.
He's not ready.
They made a mistake calling him up. He's not ready yet.
Oh, I agree. I totally agree with that.
I
thought he should have had a little bit more time in the minors to really get seasoned up before you brought him in there.
So Cam Smith, who was like the big part of the Kyle Tucker trade, he was the Cubs' #1 draft pick last summer. He played 34 minor league games last year. He had 8 home runs and 22 RBIs, but he homered in 7 straight games. So a lot of his production came in like a 7-game stretch. Then he goes into spring training this year. He has 6 homers in spring. And the Astros are like, well, you just hit 6 home runs in spring training. You hit 8 home runs in 34 minor league games. We're going to call you up as our opening day left fielder. Anywhere. He was nowhere near ready. He needed to go back down to the minors this year and get at least another 70, 80 games under his belt.
I agree. When they actually had him on the starting rotation on day 1, that's the first thing I thought to myself. I said, this kid's not ready. He's young. He hasn't even had enough spring training time to really get a good evaluation or to see where he's at. And you're already throwing him into the lineup.
He's played 8 games in Double-A. He had 26 games in high A and then 8 games in double A. And then they said, oh, you're ready to play. No.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Just imagine if the number 1 and 2 hitter, Happy Suzuki, could actually stop striking out. Between the both of them, I mean, so Tucker's got 7 strikeouts and 58 at bats.
He's got more walks than strikeouts too, doesn't he?
He's got 11. He's got 11 walks.
Yeah.
But Happ and Suzuki, Happ has 14 strikeouts as their leadoff hitter, and Suzuki's got 21 strikeouts as the number 2 hitter. So if you Tucker is at number 3, who's got less at bats than Happ does, which is so, and Happ has got 11 runs scored. 14 walks. He's been on, walked 9 times though. So between the top 3 guys, they've been walked 30 times out of 150 at bats. I am assuming that they are counting, because I'm looking at this as this is at bats before they count actual at bats. So I'm assuming that they're counting all these at bats correctly.
Yeah.
Because it's 55 at bats, 52 and 52 at bats. I'm assuming that this doesn't give you actual at bats in terms of how they, figure out regular, percentages and shit like that. So, but I'm looking at that out of 160 plate appearances between all 3 of those guys, there's been 30 walks. The runs scored between them are, again, 35 runs scored between them. The only other person who's doing any type of production at an average of 190 is Shaw, who's gotten 10 runs.
Yep. He's like the number 8 or 9 hitter.
Right. And that's probably why, because he's also walked 9 times.
Yep.
So if he's the number 9 hitter, that once he gets back around, he is getting batted home.
Yep. And basically almost half of their runs scored are coming from their top 3 hitters. And it's because they get on base and either Tucker brings them in or they get on base by taking walks or whatever. And then somebody from the 8 or 9 hole will drive them in. Because if you look at the Cubs catchers right now, the Cubs catchers had the worst production across the board in Major League Baseball last year. Like they hit a combined 191 between all their catchers last year. Right now, the Cubs catchers have 2 home runs and I think 19 RBIs between the 2 of them. Like the Cubs catchers right now are actually producing out of that number 8 hole. So they're actually doing tons of damage too.
Yeah, I don't know who their catchers actually are, but
they have Miguel Amaya and then Carson Kelly, who they got as a free agent.
All right, so both of them, they have 18 RBIs between the 2 of them, as you mentioned, both of those guys. As I'm looking at their stuff right here, direct.
Yep.
So, and between both of them, 9 strikeouts, but Kelly has got 7 walks.
Yep.
Again, it's these walks that are. You were saying that you were letting guys are going through.
They've only had 5 innings. They've only had one starter get through 6 innings against them this year, and they've only had 3 starting pitchers get into the 6th inning. Like they're getting these starters out in 5 innings because they're working counts, they're getting on base via walks, and the starters are already at 90 plus pitches through 5 innings. Like they're making these starting pitchers work. They're getting to these because if you look at a lot of their wins, not counting the
who have they played beyond the Dodgers' first 2 games, which I'm not going to. I'm going to discount here.
Okay, that's fine.
Who else have they played?
They played 4 games at Arizona to open the season, and they split. So they went 2-2 at Arizona. Then they went into Sacramento and swept Sacramento. They just had San Diego in Wrigley Field for 3 games, took 2 of 3, and they were 1 inning away from sweeping them until San Diego scored 2 runs in the 9th to win the series finale 8-7. And then they took game 1 from Texas last night. So it's not like they're playing a soft schedule. They're playing a very.
I mean, the only team that they are playing soft when you talk about it's Sacramento.
Take them out of it. They're like Arizona, the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Rangers.
Yeah, all right. So you get Arizona to start off the season. All right, those 4 pitchers are only going to be pitching in 5 innings anyways, so I get that. You got Sacramento, which stinks out loud. And you have the Padres, who are probably pitching their 3rd, 4th, and 5th guy. Or
it was technically their 2nd, 3rd, and 4th right now because Darvish is hurt, so that takes out their ace. And Dylan Cease, who's their number 2, is obviously their ace right now because Darvish is out. So it was technically their 2nd, 3rd, and 4th listed right now, but probably realistically their 3rd, 4th.
So all right, so they haven't really gone up against really good pitching yet. because ultimately, as you think about this, really good pitching is going to start to make a difference with this.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, the Dodgers just came into Philadelphia, and it's a shame I was not at this series. It's a shame that they played this early in the season. I was so frustrated that I was out in LA for this. Because I would have much rather been at home to watch this series. And of course, we took 2 out of 3. It went back and forth. It was actually a really good series to watch. And I think we did watch the NLCS in the making, barring injuries. As I think about the Dodgers, and I said that I didn't think the Dodgers are going to make the playoffs. I think that's just more wishful thinking on my part.
Yeah, that is 100% wishful thinking.
Yeah.
But as of right now, the Dodgers are in 3rd place in their division. So it's not like it's not like it's unrealistic to think that they could possibly not make it. But ultimately, I feel like I said, when adversity starts to hit them, and when one guy gets hurt and they all start to get, those Dodgers guys are streaky guys in general. So when one guy starts to go a little bad and starts to put the negative energy in that locker room, that's where I think that you could start to see more stuff happen with that team. That being said, it was a great series by the Phillies to be able to pull it off, especially going back and forth, being up 6-2, wind up going down 7-6, and still battling to win 8-7. That was pretty good going, again, losing 3-1 game 2, but we just love beating the Dodgers. We love beating the Dodgers. And the fact that we were able to hold them realistically. Ohtani doesn't like batting in Philadelphia, doesn't like batting against Philadelphia. He was like 2 for 13, I think, for the series.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really happy about that. But I'm interested to see, and I'm going to be at the Sunday game with the Cubs and Phillies in Wrigley Field.
Nice.
On April
26th, right?
April 26th. Yes, I'm going to be there for that game because, I've never been to Wrigley Field, and it's going to be just after the draft.
Oh, bundle up.
Driving through.
Bundle up. It was 27 degrees at Wrigley Field last night, so make sure you bundle up.
Good
I
God,
watched a day
man.
game, so it'll be nice and warm.
It was freaking frigid last night. Yeah, just to put that into context, what you were saying though about like when the Padres used their 3, 4, and 5 starters for the San Diego series with the Cubs last weekend, the Cubs had 24 walks and 20 strikeouts in the series over 3 games. They had more walks and strikeouts over 3 games. That's how you score 7 runs a game consistently because you constantly have people on
That's
base.
how you score runs in Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
You get on base, you're going to score runs. It doesn't matter anymore. Doesn't matter what size the bat is, whether it's a shaved bat, whether they scuff it up some, whether they got some spray on it, whether they got a torpedo, whether they got whether they got a big tree like they did in Bugs Bunny. You know what I mean? It's not going to matter.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? If you walk, you're going to score runs.
They scored 17 runs against the Padres. They had 24 walks, 20 strikeouts, and 28 hits. Basically the same amount of hits as walks scored. That's how you score runs, is you're literally keeping pressure on the pitcher every single inning. So now pitchers are throwing 19, 20 pitches per inning because you have guys on base.
So, and there you have it.
Yeah, Troy, I was hoping you were going to pop in yesterday because we talked about Clemente's sign coming down to put up an ad. That was weird.
That was the biggest topic of conversation through a lot of media outlets.
Such a bizarre because there were so many other places you could have put that ad.
Yeah,
like it just didn't make sense. But it's Pirates, so
exactly.
And and that's exactly it. Is they messed up, and so it was already back up. Like it was down for 1 game, but crazy. That being said, that gets us to the top of the hour. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. Helps us bring our content to you. And if you are watching on Roku, stay tuned for the next hour. Otherwise, we are going to get out of here. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Take it easy, everybody.
Later, guys.
Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports.